Hello, everybody. I'm Gary Gomes. Let me see if I can get my video up and running. Okay, starting. Here we are. Hi, my name is Gary Gomes. I'm a Vedic astrologer in New Bedford, Mass. I'd like to thank Greater New Bedford Cable TV for giving me the opportunity to broadcast and share some of my insights, my astrological insights with you. I hope I'm not terrifying people by getting too close to the screen. I'm in kind of a limited space here, so this will improve. I promise you, this will get better. However, I do want to talk about a couple of upcoming planetary events. We have a really important planetary event, and I'll be talking about Vedic astrology in particular, which is different from Western astrology. I've gone through these differences many times before, but quickly, Indian or Vedic astrology uses what's called a Lahiri Ayanamsha or an Ayanamsha, which adjusts signs back almost 1 whole degree. So we have a variety of planetary placements in the birth chart, which will be different for you if you're used to Western astrology. The other thing is they also use a system of Mahadashas or major planetary periods. They also use a variety of harmonic charts. These are charts derived from the main chart. They're very useful for focusing on things like luck, career, marriage, and also for a variety of other topics like illnesses and points of worship, children, those types of things. So you have a variety of these mechanisms that Indian astrology has used through the ages. It's a very old system of astrology. Scholars dispute exactly how old it is, but conservatively, it's at least it's a consistent practice which has been in existence for over 2,000 years. That's very conservatively. Indian astrologers would say, no, it's been around for about 6,000 years. And there is some evidence to suggest that may in fact be true. But I'm not going to debate about that. The other thing you have to keep in mind is that the Indian system of astrology is based upon what they would call accumulated karma. So essentially, there's a very strong belief in past lives in Indian astrology and past incarnations. So if you have something going on in your life, it's kind of the result of things you've done in previous lifetimes or things that you may not have paid attention to in previous lifetimes. It doesn't mean you've done bad things. Not all karmas are bad. The term karma is really misused in the West because it's intended to show basically some kind of a flaw or some kind of a debt that you owe. It's not, it's action. So karma is action, dharma is luck. So I just want to share that with you first of all. Now I'm going to take my chart off the screen, which is, you don't need, as fascinating as I may be to some people, I'm not that fascinating. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change time zones to the local time zone so I can show you where the planets are right now. And there are two really important, and I'm starting from New Bedford because that's where I am and the time zones work better if I do that. And as you can see, I'm doing this broadcast around 15 minutes after 12 on a Sunday afternoon. So it's December 13th, 2020. Also, one thing I would like to mention, we have schools coming up. I teach astrology. I do astrology readings. You can contact me at Crystal Expectations at 508-990-7898. You can contact me on my cell phone, 508-525-0001. You can contact me. I'm on Facebook. I have a website, Gary Gomes Vedic Astrologer, and you can also also Northeast Institute of Vedic Astrology and Studies, which is an astrology school. I also teach at Kepler College. There's a variety of ways you can reach me, and by looking up any of those places, you'll hit me online. I also have collaborations with astrologers in other countries, such as Shana Devi Hausman in Turkey and um, um, uh, I'm trying to remember his same name. Um, and and Krishna in Uruguay, and I have a variety of other contacts around the world. My apologies for that. Brain lapse. I am 68 years old, so sometimes the brain cells aren't going to function properly. But regardless of that, the other, so you can contact me that way. Please, if you like what I'm doing, and even if you don't like it, but you'd like to see me do something else and something a little bit more to your liking, please hit the like button, hit the bell, leave your comments. I do get back to people who look at this channel. This channel goes on YouTube as well. And I'm trying to build up a strong following because I think there's a lot of not bad astrology, I think just overly flowery astrology going out right now. And I'm not criticizing anybody. Everybody's entitled to their own techniques and their own procedures. But I just find I tend to be more of a straight talking kind of a person, and I try not to flower it up with too much about with too much speculation about what your past lives were, or too much speculation about what God sent you to the world for. It's sort of not an astrologer's job. An astrologer's job is really to point out what challenges and what opportunities you have coming up in the best way to minimize problems and maximize opportunities. That's my view anyway. They can give you some spiritual guidance, but they're not spiritual teachers. They can advise you as when you're going to acquire bits of knowledge, and that's my that's the perspective I take anyway. I am a priest of the Kriya Yoga lineage, so I do have some training in spiritual advice, but I tend not to give it as part of a reading. It's not really what you come to me for a reading for. Okay. So regardless of that, I want to look at tomorrow's eclipse. So I'm doing this rather late, and eclipses are considered very important points in Indian astrology. And also I want to do like a more compacted reading for December 15th through January 15th, which is sort of an important period in the chart. So I'm going to press ahead to December 14th. The eclipse doesn't occur exactly at this time that I'm choosing, but if you look down here, you can see that K2 and the moon and the sun and Venus and Mercury are all really close together. Now that's interesting because eclipse points that appear, these are Venus and Mercury are usually called personal planets in Indian astrology. So the slower moving ones are, or in any kind of astrology, the slower moving ones tend to be Jupiter and Saturn and Rahu and Ketu, and they tend to have like longer lasting effects. And although I don't use the outer planets, Pluto, Uranus, and Neptune also give longer lasting effects. So essentially, we're having kind of an important eclipse right now, and the eclipse points have been moving through Scorpio and Taurus since the summertime. So that's a bit of a relief for a lot of people because last year was just, and we saw it ourselves in our society, last year was a period of like really extreme change. And the reason for that was because the planets were in changeable signs. Sagittarius and Gemini are changeable signs. You can't see the the names of the signs here, but this is Pisces, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius. And whenever you see a combination like that, essentially, if you see an eclipse, especially in a changeable sign, things are going to change. They're going to be disrupted. So we went through a major year of disruption last year. Saturn also happened to be in Sagittarius as well, so that made things even more complicated. So it caused a lot of misery to people. And there were other planets that were responsible for that as well. The spread of the virus really wasn't caused by Saturn, it was more caused by Jupiter and Mars acting in consort, or in concert with each other. And basically, the spreads tend to get accelerated when Jupiter is strong. That's one thing I've noticed over time. Jupiter is considered to be a very good planet in all forms of astrology, but whatever is there, it gives more of. So if Jupiter is strong and it's really punching a hole in the wall, or if something bad's really happening, guess what? You're gonna get more of the bad. It won't, but you got to cure it pretty quickly, or you got a vaccine anyway, very quickly, like in record speed time actually. So that was the good thing about Jupiter being in Sagittarius, but it'll still do a lot of damage. Now Jupiter is creeping up on Saturn, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes, because this is another important event. We have the Sun, Mercury, and Venus in K2, and the Moon all in the same sign, so that's going to constitute a solar eclipse. Now, what happens with solar eclipses? Well, basically, you'll see with lunar eclipses, we had a lunar eclipse around November 30th. That caused a lot of embarrassment to government. That caused a lot of embarrassment and a lot of, I would say, impatience or anxiety, because, again, the two planets involved were Scorpio and Taurus. So with Taurus, at least in Indian astrology, what I've seen, Taurus does tend to focus on bodily security, on health, on taking care of yourself, and also on financial security. So that eclipse tended to mean we had not a lot of help across the country and across the world in terms of financial support connected with our world. However, the fascinating thing that I'm seeing is we have this lunar eclipse. So that gave a lot of anxiety and a lot of worry. That's one of Rahu's jobs, is to make us worry about the future, worry about whether or not we're going to have enough. With K2 tends to detach us a little bit, but K2 is also pretty interesting, because whenever you see K2 and Mercury together, there's either a potential to lie, which can come up, or there's actually a strong potential to reveal the truth. So let's say if somebody's been lying to you about something for a while, when you see a K2 Sun conjunction, bing, it all of a sudden it'll come through. And I find it interesting. I find it fascinating. This is not to get too much into the political arena. I find it fascinating that the events around the end of October, November, when Joe Biden's son was accused of engaging in illegal activities, were branded almost universally as fake or made up or Russian propaganda. It turns out, and again, actually this was said at the time of the investigation, it turns out that he'd been being investigated since 2018. So a lot of this stuff is coming out right now. Since Mercury is here, the media is involved. Since Venus is here, there's a certain sense of justice involved. And since K2 and the Moon are here, it's very public. Okay, so this doesn't mean necessarily that I did predict that Trump would win the election. So this is full disclosure. I'm not upset when a prediction goes wrong. 70% accuracy is actually considered pretty good for astrology. And I've been more than 70% accurate over the past few years or so. So again, this isn't a personal thing where I'm saying to myself, oh, you see, because I'm not convinced he did win the election. I don't know. I don't know what's on those affidavits. I don't know. I don't know how the voting machine issues work. I don't know any of that stuff. However, what I do know is that basically there wasn't due diligence on the part of the press. And there hasn't been due diligence on the part of the press for several months now. With this Mercury-Venus conjunction with K2, and you can't see it from where you are, but K2 and Mercury are almost right on top of each other during this conjunction. So Mercury and K2 are like really they're like ramped together. And K2 is direct as well, which is fairly unusual for an eclipse. So I use what are called true nodes, and oftentimes Indian astrologists will use the mean nodes because those are average calculations of speed. And a fellow in the 1950s or 60s, I believe it was, came up with a different way of calculating the nodes so they would be more accurate in coinciding with eclipses. And he allowed for retrograde and direct. So the nodes always move backwards. Right now they're direct. So it's going to be like a big glaring spotlight on any inequities or any problems that have shown up over the past year or so. So this will be fascinating watching what's going to happen between the next 7 days or so. The other thing is, so this eclipse, how will it affect you personally, which is more what people want to know. Basically, it'll affect relationship life, it'll affect communications, it'll affect mental stability because Moon and K2 are also really close together. And the Sun and Moon, Mercury, and K2 are all like rammed together in like this really tight space. And Venus is a little bit to the side, it's a little bit backwards. So that tends to make us get a little bit more, trying to think of a good way to put it, more relationship driven, more interested in following our passions, whether they be in a relationship or even in business matters. So you're going to see a lot of intensity over the next few months in terms of like people really focusing on what they want to do, what they believe in, what they're interested in versus what everybody else wants them to do. So it sounds like a selfish combination, but actually it's positive because you're going to have a lot of people breaking out of confines or structures that have held them in creatively. The other thing you're going to notice overall is because we have, so let's use this as a rising sign. You have Jupiter and Saturn in the third house. Now on December 21st, there will be a Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. Usually these events, I think a lot of astrologers overplay Jupiter-Saturn conjunctions, to be honest with you, but this is actually a significant one because Jupiter and Saturn in Indian astrology are in Capricorn. Jupiter's debilitated in Capricorn, so that tends to give bad judgment or not so great judgment in government. So essentially what this tends to mean is a transition of power, but because Jupiter and Saturn are both in Capricorn, it'll mean a failure to act. It'll mean a failure to actually do the right thing. After December 21st, so Jupiter and Saturn right now are within what's called a planetary war. Jupiter's at lower degree, Saturn's at higher degree, so technically Jupiter by strength and by the placement system I use wins planetary war. So this is a little bit optimistic, a lot of hope that things will return to quote unquote normal, the way we're used to doing things. When after December 21st, so let's look at December 21st. But that also means, like I said, kind of a lack of progress. After around December 21st, you'll see Saturn is just a little bit ahead of Jupiter. The conjunction's almost exact, and after December 21st and through early next year, you'll see Saturn winning planetary war over Jupiter. So that's going to mean things are going to seem awfully dire in the United States in particular, but pretty much around the world. It is not necessarily a prelude to war. It is not necessarily a prelude to economic collapse, but you will see markets tightening, and you will see people starting to get a little bit worried about financial security. And you may even see some shocks or jolts to government, to the expected sequence or succession of power. I don't necessarily think that there'll be a reversal and that Trump will become declared president. That doesn't seem realistic to me, but it'll come. It'll be in play for a few more months, to be true, I think. And the other thing is Saturn's also aspecting the moon when that occurs. So again, there'll be a lot of public anxiety, a lot of fear. Mercury will have moved to a different sign by that time. That'll make people more communicative, more willing to do the right thing, more willing to report on the right thing. So I think you're going to see some shifts. And also, as I predicted about well over a year ago, this will also tend to be a time when media companies in particular will be in a lot of trouble, including internet media companies. So I'm not naming any names. I'm not saying, and when I say trouble, it's essentially the drive to demonopolize them, because essentially most media companies don't have any serious competition. And you'll also see an effort to, I'm just going to say, to increase rigor in news reporting, because I think what we've seen over the past few months, and I'm not saying it's all wrong, I think there has been a lot of good reporting done, but I've seen what I would call selective reporting. So essentially reporting that favors one individual over another individual. And that varies from media outlet to media outlet. I'm not saying that it's just one group or another group is doing it. I'm saying everybody's doing it. So essentially, news, in theory at least, is supposed to be an objective process. It's never really one, because basically every reporter, every journalist, every network has people they favor. And to be truthful, we wouldn't be human if we didn't have that. But I think that's one of the changes you're going to start to see, like some kinds of standards, maybe even a standards commission set up in government. Keep in mind, my perspective is the United States is going to be in relative turmoil. Doesn't mean collapse, but relative turmoil for about another 15 years. Or 14 years, excuse me. So that doesn't mean that this transition we have to a President Biden from President Trump is going to necessarily stabilize things. I don't think it will. And I think you're going to see a lot more protests, a lot more, and not just from the right, a lot more protests from people who want to see more fairness in government, more equity in government, more equity in life. So it'll be from both sides. It'll be interesting, because the center is going to be under, the established order is going to be under increased scrutiny, maybe even at points under some attack. And when I say attack, I'm not talking about people being killed or assassinated. Also, I want to look. Also, this is not what I would call a war-making configuration. The Mahadashas for the United States aren't right. The major planetary periods aren't right. It's really not even a condition for an economic collapse, although I do think the economy is going to be down for about, at least for 4 months. The good news is that with the vaccines being introduced, I think you're going to see life starting to return to quote unquote normal. within about 4 months. But I still think things like, I'm just going to give you my personal belief, I still think things like stimulus packages are necessary. I don't think there's any doubt about that. This was and we can just look at the U.S. chart quickly. And I'll go to cover the rest of the world in a second. US. And there is some controversy about this chart, to be honest with you, but this has been pretty accurate. So right now we're in a Saturn subperiod. So Saturn's kind of nasty. We're in a Rahu Saturn, so there's anxiety, there's fear. It's sort of a natural pattern of Saturn. Okay? Doesn't necessarily mean war, although World War II did break out during a Saturn Mahadasha for the United States, but this is not a Saturn Mahadasha. We're in a Rahu Mahadasha. Rahu is a little different. Rahu's in our 8th house. It means there's a lot of sneaky things going on, a lot of behind the scenes manipulation going on. So basically, you're in a Saturn subperiod, Rahu Saturn subperiod, until April 16th when you enter a Mercury subperiod. So you should see some returns. Mercury's in the 8th house. You should see some increased financial growth during this period. Mercury subperiods tend to be really good for the United States, especially in terms of technological innovation. But I would expect 4 months of relative, not indecision, but relative inaction, and also, just bad economic news. You might see a few bumps around December 31st to January 28th. I still think housing will probably do pretty well. If I look at the charts connected with housing. So it doesn't seem to be that bad a combination. But I think after April 16th was really when you're going to start to see the economy pick up steam and recover. Between September 11th of 2021 and November of 2021, some more problems with illnesses, but nothing quite so bad as right now. And November 2021 to May of 2022, an overall good period for the United States. So let's look at these particular eclipses and how they affect the rest of the world. Okay, or this eclipse and then we'll see how it affects your signs. And this Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. So December 14th. Oops, sorry. And the sun's about to change signs too, so that's actually always interesting. So the sun's about to enter Sagittarius. That's always kind of an eye-opener for people. We're just down for, I'll just leave it at Houston, Pennsylvania, because it was kind of a stupid thing I did. Nope. All right. So we're back to basically the same chart. It doesn't change very much. And typically, so Mars is in the 1st house, so everybody's going to be, or Mars is pretty strong in the chart, is in the 5th house from the Sun, Moon. So it's going to make everybody in a little bit of a fighting mood, but basically, and Saturn's aspecting Mars, so a lot of the initial vaccination attempts will probably go a little bit awry. And when I say awry, it's not that many people are going to get sick, but a lot of people will hesitate to take the vaccine. But that's okay. That's really just this month. And also Saturn aspecting Mars, people will want everything tied up in a nice, neat little bow before the month is out. So regardless of what happens, you'll probably see a resolution of the presidential election on December, on the date in question. If any other issues come up, they'll be continued into the new year. So you may see disruptions during the Saturn subperiod up until April. Then things will calm down. And when I'm saying disruptions, I'm not even necessarily talking about riots in particular, but you'll definitely see a lot of protests over the next few months, even in the cold weather. The other thing is, at least from this chart, So Sun is in Scorpio, Saturn's in the third house. So a lot of ambivalence about what direction the country wants to go into. Does it want to lock down? Does it want to open the economy? Right now, it has to open the economy because Jupiter's in the forefront. After December 21st, it'll feel less pressure to open the economy. I hope that's because the stimulus bill will pass, but I'm not holding my breath because I don't think we're going to see any action on that until after mid-January. And the other thing is we have all the planets are clustered in this side of space. So we have what's called a Kala Sarpa Yoga. So Kala Sarpa yogas are pretty common, but that essentially blocks the planets from making any progress for about 4 to 5 months. And that's mainly because you have to get the planets out of this yoga before anything really can happen or you can really move forward. So that's really, again, consistent with April. So Kala Sarpa Yoga means it's a serpent of time yoga. So that means all the planets are between Rahu and Ketu, or the north and south lunar nodes. So that'll kind of tie things up. It'll kind of keep things over the next 4 months. It kind of stasis. It'll be bad. There'll be a lot of deadlock. After around April, you'll start to see some deadlock lighten up. If we're looking around the world, astro mapping screen, the places where you're going to see the most intensity are really in the middle of the United States. Okay, so Louisiana, Chicago, Illinois, because this is the area that the eclipse is hitting the most. Parts of Mexico, down into Nicaragua, it looks like, and all the way down into Antarctica, which really doesn't affect us all that much. But the sun and Canada, also a lot of controversy in Canada between the sun. So Canada, there's recently been a report out about some government scandals in Canada. And also anger in Maine, New England, some disruption in Guinea and throughout Brazil, and also some changes in government in Brazil. So I think it's going to be interesting to see if that actually comes to fruition, because it looks like some people will be thrown out of power. I don't think it's the current president, obviously. Also, West Africa is going to be hit with communications scandals and communications problems. So is Portugal. And if we look over here at Jupiter and Saturn, so we had an earthquake in Germany just a little while ago, which is rare. So Germany has potential for other earthquakes. Greece has more of a potential for earthquakes than Turkey does, but there could be some kind of a sea earthquake which will have impact on Turkey, but I don't see anything really nasty happening. There'll be some military conflict or some military arguments in Eastern Europe and down through Egypt and Sudan and all the way down to South Africa. Also, you'll see some problems, I would say, in Saudi Arabia is too far away. And also some disruptions between China and India over the next few weeks. Also, just because of this little curved line right here, we're going to have some governmental problems between Taiwan and China. So that's going to go swimmingly well as it has gone so far. And Japan may have some minor damage from storms over here, and Korea as well. This is North Korea. So North Korea may bring a change in leadership as well. Venus is going through Australia. That's not bad. And Rahu is affecting, Rahu, Saturn, and Jupiter are also affecting the West Coast. So around San Francisco should have some problems with changes in government or protests against leadership. So I'm not expecting any major events. The line that I'm looking at most strongly right now is the line over Brazil, but these three lines over the central United States, basically Louisiana up through Michigan, they look pretty potent. So you are going to see some protests in that part of the country, Georgia, Michigan. Pennsylvania is not part of that line, but it's close to a Mars line, so I'm not sure if they're going to be involved in that as well. And Arizona has a Venus line going to it, and if you recall, Venus is in the same sign as Scorpio. So I think that overall you're going to see a lot of disruption, especially connected around government in those states and in those countries. In terms of like physical damage, I think that Jupiter and Saturn could lead to some changes in the political environment in Eastern Europe, maybe in Turkey. That's a little bit tough for me to see, and maybe some strife between Turkey and its border states. And Saturn is passing over Madagascar, so again, maybe some disease issues in Madagascar. But if we're talking about economic effects, the western United States up through Montana, California through Montana, and also in the Midwest, Michigan, Illinois, Kentucky, Tennessee. And those parts are already being hit pretty hard financially anyway, so that's sort of like a continuation. And since this is so close to let me see if it changes at all for the Jupiter-Saturn conjunction, but I doubt it's going to change significantly. Over here, Jupiter-Saturn. I have something open. There it is. All right, Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. We're going to swap it. And let's see if there's any changes for that. Because the moon is in a different place. Astro mapping. No, not really a lot of change. The moon is, there will be more problems in Washington though, during this, because we have a moon line going through here. And that does indicate change, but it does indicate some controversy, especially between parties, or especially on the part of the people. So the people will be very upset with whatever is going on in Washington. And also there will be efforts to slow down or stop the transition of power. This will also happen in Germany, and also to a certain extent in China. There'll be, I don't want to go so far as to say there'll be civilian uprisings, but there'll certainly be civilian unrest in China and throughout most of Southeast Asia down here. So those are things you can almost, I don't want to say guarantee, but you'll certainly see a lot of disruption over the next month. And a lot of it based upon politics, a lot of it based upon just perceptions of unfairness. And I'm not even talking in terms of the election. I'm talking about in terms of like financial assistance and packages to help people. And this is going to be true pretty much around the world in those areas that I mentioned, because a lot of people are obviously hitting financial log jams because they can't work, they can't engage in their regular lifestyles. So this is going to be, the next few months are going to be kind of interesting, and that's not in a good way. So essentially, let's look at what's going to happen to people over the next few weeks, next couple of weeks, in terms of their astrology signs. So we're talking about Aries. Aries has good opportunities for financial growth, but they'll also have to be spending a lot of money over the next few weeks, just in order to keep their heads above water. And also, they'll be feeling like they don't have enough money coming in. Relationship life will be difficult because of that, because relationship partners will feel like they're poor. But there will be a lot of focus in the sign on career life, and they'll actually expand their career influence and their career lives over the next few months. So that's a good thing for them. But financially, they're not doing as well as they hope. There'll be unexpected expenses connected with partnerships or children, and I think that's going to be what's holding on their minds. For Taurus, Taurus has some fame coming to it. It has some fame, but it also has some unrest coming to it. And what I mean by unrest is generally they'll feel like their luck has suddenly evaporated. They feel like they have to work twice as hard for everything that came easily before. But they'll also have some confusion over relationships. They may have too many relationship opportunities, and they feel a little bit overwhelmed by the attention they're getting. So that's a little bit of a drawback for that particular sign. For Gemini, also let me just mention one more thing about Taurus, because everything is clustering in this side, you see. So we're not having a lot of things happening over here, but that doesn't mean nothing's happening in those houses. This is a house of money. Taurus has little money coming in, and it's being spent on family and also in relationship partners. So I think for this particular sign, you'll see some gains. You'll see some financial gains. You'll see some property gains, but also, like I said, just general dis-ease with how their life is going. It doesn't mean they're in a bad spot. They're actually in a very good spot. It'll actually turn out to be a lucky year for Taurus. This is May 15th to June 15th in the Vedic chart. But again, like I said, it won't feel that great. Gemini has its Lord in the 6th house, which means they'll tend to have more enemies, more obstacles, but also more drive and more ambition than it normally has. So you'll actually start to see a lot of increased financial growth to this sign. They'll start to pull out all the stops in terms of career matters. Even in terms of relationship life, they'll try to pull out all the stops, but relationship happiness doesn't seem to be coming to them until around April or so this year, until late April. And the other thing is, for this particular sign, career life will become extraordinarily important. That's like a really, really major focus. So they're going to be very ambitious, very aggressive, very pushy in terms of like generating their career profile and making more money. Cancer has 2 planets in the 7th house. This usually indicates the person will have 2 romantic interests, possibly one who might be a little bit more secure and more stable, another one who might be a little bit more fun or a little bit more outgoing and jovial, but the jovial one is not really responsible. So at least from this chart, after Saturn starts winning planetary war after December 23rd, I probably encourage the sign to make a relationship decision, but not right now. Also, in terms of home life and children, there should be a lot of potential for romantic relationships with this sign. We have Cancer, and the Cancer's 5th house is loaded from the chart. So this could mean either children or love affairs, or even going out and having parties. So at least from the chart, this sign will have a lot of good past life credit. It's a house of what they call Purva Punya, or past life credit in Indian astrology. So this particular sign, sun, moon, or rising sign, if you know your rising sign, in Cancer, will have a lot of good opportunities over the next year to increase their luck, to increase, as a matter of fact, a lot of unexpected relationship opportunities to younger people who you would not normally associate with. Leo comes up as the next sign we're looking at. Leo's got Mars in the 8th house. That's a condition they call Mars affliction. So this sign may find itself a little bit beset upon by its relationship partners. And you have a lot of drama in the 4th house in home life because Moon, K2, Venus, Sun, Mercury, all in the 4th house in this chart. A lot of people feeling angry or upset with you. A lot of people feeling a little bit unhappy. A lot of focus on stabilizing home life over the next year, but in particular over the next month. And this will be true really until around December 16th. Then things will start to calm down a little bit. December 16th to December 20th, things will start coming down home-wise. The other thing is, for Leo, this should give some fame in career or some recognition in career. So that's actually a good thing. But that Mars in the 8th house, it's a little bit difficult for the person because they'll have a lot of conflicts with relationship partners, and it's, and relationship partners will be easy to upset. Virgo has Mars in the 7th house, similar situation to Leo, only more direct. They'll have a lot of relationship problems, a lot of, relationship partner will seem to be angry all the time, more easily upset, and kind of aggressive. But also this chart looks very ambitious. A lot of drive, a lot of luck, actually, if the sign just works and applies itself. That work and application may not go over so well with dating opportunities or with relationship partners, but believe me, if this particular sign applies itself this month, it'll make a lot of career progress. So that's just between September 15th and October 15th. These people are born. For Libra, which is born between October 15th and November 15th in Vedic astrology, good time for money, for enhanced money growth. There'll be some expenditures because the 12th Lord is in the 2nd house, and also K2's there, but there'll also be increased fame, increased recognition, increased financial flow. So that's very good. The yogi point is in the 2nd house here too. So the yogi point is a special point. It's calculated in an Indian chart, which actually gives financial growth. So you'll start to see a lot of income opportunities over the next month or so. For Scorpio, career life, let me just look at career. Career life will expand. I think I said that unexpectedly too. And also the sign will be extremely competitive this month, very much like Gemini. The Scorpio has a lot of planets in it, as we've said before. It's the Lord of the 9th, the 10th. So career life is a very strong focus, and relationship life is a very strong focus. But so are enemies and chronic problems and losses. So how do we tie these all together? Good time for business opportunities, bad time for relationship life. If you can lie low in terms of if you want to keep your relationship going and stable, I would lie low. I wouldn't try to get in any arguments. If you're feeling a little bit down about your relationship, don't. This will pass. This will pass fairly quickly. And essentially, with Saturn and Jupiter in the 3rd house, again, a very strong competitive spirit for this sign. But also some problems with children. Children will be expecting too much from parents during this month. For Sagittarius in this chart has no planets in it, but it has the Lord in the 2nd house, so there's an increased focus on money. But there will be financial blocks for this sign over the next month or so. And that will settle down just a little bit. So Mars changes signs in mid-January, and Mars goes to the 4th house, or Mars goes to the 5th house. So it'll take a lot of relationship pressure off this sign because, again, it has the same combinations as Virgo, Libra, and Gemini does. Oh, excuse me, Virgo, Libra, and not Gemini. Virgo and Libra do, because uh, there's Mars affliction in the chart. So essentially, with the Sagittarius rising sign, good for financial growth, good for some disputes at home, definitely. But that seems to be sort of a key theme this month, doesn't it? And also from the chart, just good growth potential, because Jupiter's aspecting Rahu in this chart. Good financial growth potential, but nothing's permanent, nothing is secure. For Capricorn, Capricorn has Saturn and Jupiter in it, very potent combination. It does shift life patterns, that much I will say about it. And it can shift governments or destabilize governments. That I've seen happen many times. Does it do so by war? Not necessarily. It does so, though, by a combination of manipulation from people within institutions and manipulation from people outside of institutions. So I can give you like a backdrop of the last Saturn-Jupiter conjunctions, and one was 2000, one was 1980, one was 1960, one was 1940, one was 1920. In every single incidence, one was 1900. In every single instance except for 1900, there was a change of administration. So essentially, I mean, so this is something I should have seen coming a while ago, to be honest with you. But also, this does mean a shift in bosses, a shift in people, in things you're responsible for, and you'll be better prepared to take on additional responsibility over the next month. Also, a lot of ambition for the sign. So we're seeing a lot of signs that have, maybe about half the signs have a lot of additional ambition. It's just the way the chart's being laid out. And and you'll also see increased arguments with civil to be active and to be forceful. Now, for Aquarius, Aquarius has Mars affliction too, so this seems to be all over the chart as well. But it's more like it'll more be connected with arguments at home and arguments over priorities. And I think from this chart, you'll start to see a lessening of that over the next, probably around mid-January. Also for Aquarius, a lot of expenses, a lot of friends causing expenses, but a lot of career growth, unexpected career opportunities, maybe new career opportunities coming out of the blue, and a lot of money coming out of the blue as well. So that's great. Rahu's in the fourth house, a lot of dissatisfaction with home life though, and a lot of desire to go back to career life. For Pisces, last but certainly not least, for Pisces, we have another Mars affliction combination. So this is riddled through the chart, but Saturn's aspecting Mars, so these people expect the relationship partner. So the relationship partner's luck will not be that great. And also, you'll have a lot of financial gains this month. Again, a lot of ambition. This is showing up again and again in the chart. This is big ambition. This sign wants to make it big this month. It'll probably have to wait for about a month and a half to do that, but that will happen. So essentially, from this chart, some problems with friends not keeping their word, and also, at least from this chart, a lot of spiritual activity, a lot more interest in spirituality, a lot more interest in investments, a lot more interest in making it rich. So that's it for all of the signs. This is going to be just a wee bit shorter than other broadcasts have done, just like a matter of a couple of minutes. But it's been a pleasure to share this time with you. I hope this has been clear, relevant, and helpful to you in planning events. And I'll be back on more quickly than I have been over the past month. This past month has been a little bit extra busy for me, so I'm not trying to explain it to you. I'm not trying to rationalize it, but I hope to get back to weekly broadcasts, and after the beginning of the year, I hope to get back to higher quality weekly broadcasts. So that's it for me. I wish you the very, very best. Stay safe, stay healthy. Don't worry, everything will work out the way it's supposed to work out. We do have to do something about trust in government and media, though, because that's really going to be a big challenge. If we don't, there'll probably be some constitutional rewrites over the next few years. There'll probably be some, we'll kind of drift into conflicts. And that's what I'm worried about. I don't see any intentional wars popping up on the map. I'm seeing what I would call a lot of accidental wars based upon bad information. So, that having been said, keep the faith. Don't let anything lay you down, because things will get better. It may take as long as April, but things will get better. Okay? All right. Namaste, and please take care of yourselves. Bye-bye now. Gary Gomes, 508-525-0001. Thank you. Bye-bye. Everybody be well. Everybody be safe.